Welcome to Fast Physio Facts with me, Mick Hughes, episode 2. And today's paper is a great one on the role of Nordic Hamstring Strengthening Exercises and the ability for them to improve not only flexibility, strength, but also to muscle performance. So this paper was published in 2025 by Hassini and colleagues, and the name of the paper was The Effects of 8 Weeks of Dynamic Hamstring Stretching or Nordic Hamstring Strengthening on Balance, Range of Motion, Agility, and Muscle Performance among Male Soccer Players, a randomised control trial. So I really like this paper because it's got real-world applicability, and it goes to answer the question, do we stretch our soccer players that have got objectively measured tightness, or do we load them and strengthen them? So they recruited 60 male soccer players aged 18 to 25. All had objectively measured hamstring tightness as measured by the active knee extension test, with a cutoff of more than 33 degrees difference between limbs. They then randomised the players into 3 groups. 20 did Nordics for 8 weeks, 20 did dynamic stretching for 8 weeks, and then 20 did their normal usual training and were identified as the control group. Importantly, they kept their normal training going as per normal. So they didn't do any extra hamstring strengthening if they were involved in the Nordic group, and they didn't do any extra hamstring stretching if they were involved in the flexibility group. So the Nordic group was actually a really interesting dosage, and some may say a really high load, and I too would agree with that. So they actually got exposed to Nordics 5 times a week, ranging from weeks 1 and 2, where they did 2 sets of 5 to 6. Weeks 3 and 4, they got up to 3 sets of somewhere between 6 and 10. And then by week 5 through to week 8, they got through 3 sets of 8, 10, and 12, 5 times a week. So a really high dosage of Nordics, with the idea that this consistent exposure led to a progressive overload in their tissues. The dynamic stretching group did a similar, similar frequency per week. So they did 5 times a week. But their dosage was really low in comparison. So they did 5 sets of 30 per limb dynamic hamstring stretching exercises. Again, 5 days a week. The control group did their regular training. So the outcomes they looked at were really key in this paper. So they looked at hamstring range of motion, identified by the active knee extension test, and a traditional hamstring sit and reach test. They also looked at dynamic balance via the Y balance test. They also looked at agility with the Illinois agility run test. And they also looked at muscle performance via the counter movement jump. So a really, really well-conducted trial, and the results were really fascinating, and surprise, surprise, they did favour the Nordic group. So the Nordic group improved across the board on basically everything. So their active knee extension range improved by 16%. So their hamstring flexibility got specifically better. Sit and reach got 11% better. Y balance test got 16% better. Impressively, their agility time was 13% faster, which was probably maybe an unexpected finding here. And their counter movement jump also too got 7% better as well. The dynamic stretching group did well, and they actually got better as well, but their changes were much smaller. So their active knee extension range of movement got 2% better. Sit and reach got 5.5% better. Illinois agility 4.5% better, and the counter movement jump 1% better. So they were positive changes there, but nowhere near as impressive as what the Nordic group did and what they were able to change. The control group got absolutely no better at all. So really interesting findings here from this paper. And I've just got a couple of tips to probably round out this summary. So I think if you've got male soccer players with perceived tightness and objectively measured tightness in their hamstrings, Nordics are one stimulus to help improve their not only strength, and obviously it's going to improve their eccentric strength and help them reduce the risk of injury, but also too will have that knock-on effect where it will improve their hamstring flexibility, but also has a wonderful knock-on effect to performance outcome measures such as agility and counter movement jumps, so vertical jump as well. So I think the challenge here is to take this study and apply it in the context of a season, because I can only imagine this would be really stressful on the hamstring tissues, and 5 exposures per week with quite a large volume of hamstrings would not be well tolerated in season. So it's going to be one of these things that you'd probably work on this in the pre-season, or certainly in the person's off season when they've got a bit of a window of time to effectively improve their flexibility. Tip 2 is that, I guess this is another kind of feather in the hat for Nordics, in that, really simple, consistent exposure to that eccentric stimulus has got, really long-lasting results. And of course, eccentric stimulus can come via many ways, but once again, as I've said many times before, Nordics are a wonderful way to get that eccentric stimulus in via a high-intensity way, but also too, you don't need any equipment. You just need a partner that can hold your ankles down. So people who have got limited access to gym equipment, or who are trying to train and I guess abuse their muscles and train them effectively and consistently over time, and they can't get to the gym, or they want to basically stress and strain their body on one particular day and allow good recovery in between training sessions and games. Nordics provide a really valuable and flexible, pardon the pun, a way to do that. And of course, like sprinting is another way. But yeah, Nordics are just so evidence-based, yet there's a lot of resistance around them. So this is just another paper that really, I guess, sings the praises, but also too, we've probably looked at it from injury prevention points of view, we've looked at it from strength points of view, but this was a really nice paper where we're seeing benefits of Nordics now being seen, obviously, in flexibility changes, but also too in agility changes and vertical jump changes. So I hope you get something out of this paper. The full text links to the paper, so you can really dive into this one, is at the link below this video. Episode 2 in the books. I hope you've learned something new, and I'll bring episode 3 next week. See you then.